Are you serious? Are you serious? Folks, we have reports coming out of the Middle East. Russian jets flying into Syria. Russia has begun its military intervention of Syria, deploying an aerial contingency to a permanent Syrian base in order to launch attacks against ISIS and the Islamic rebels, according to the U.S. reports. Now, Russian fighter pilots are expected to begin arriving in Syria in the coming days and will fly their Russian Air Force fighter jets and attack helicopters against ISIS and the rebel-aligned targets wherein it's the fallen state. Now, according to Western diplomats, a Russian force has already arrived in Syria and has set up a camp in an Assad-controlled air base. The base is said to be in an area surrounding Damascus and will serve for all intents and purposes as the Russian forward operating base. Now, in the coming weeks, thousands of Russian military personnel are set to touch down in Syria, including advisors and instructors and logistic personnel, technical personnel, members of the Aerial Protection Division, and the pilots who will operate the aircraft. Past reports have stated that the Russians were in talks to sell the Syrians a package of MiG-29 fighter jets and Yak-130 trainer jets, which can also serve as attack aircraft. The current makeup of the expedition force is still unknown, but there's no doubt that the Russian pilots flying combat missions in Syrian skies will definitely change the existing dynamics in the Middle East. This is huge news. This is huge news, folks. The Russians do not harbor offensive intentions toward Israel. That is the big question. Do they or not? Because they are aligned with Iran. So what are the Russians doing? Someone says, yay, they're going to take on ISIS. Do you know what they're really doing? They are going to bomb ISIS because they are there to prop up Iran. They're there to keep Assad in his little bunker there in Damascus, in that little spot he's got. That's all he controls. The Russians are there to drive ISIS back, not to liberate the Syrian people, but to capture the moment, to help embolden the Iranians and their Revolutionary Guard and the Iranian offensive that's already taking place, to support the Iranians and to get as close to the Israeli border as possible. And if you read the great battle of Gog and Magog, which is going to take place, and in Ezekiel saw it, he prophesied it, he tells you that the Russians and the Persians, or the Iranians and the Turks and Libya and Ethiopia, come together as one against Israel. And they come down from the north. They will come down right over the Golan Heights, right out of Syria. So from a biblical perspective, don't get emotional on me right now. Don't go off the deep end right now. Hang on with me a minute. I'm telling you what the Bible said is going to happen in Ezekiel 38 and 39. I'm telling you that the alliance of Magog, which he's in the process right now, Vladimir Putin is in the process of reestablishing the old Magog territory. That's why he has troops all along the border with Ukraine, on the eastern Ukraine. That's why there's rioting going on. Do you think that the rioting going on in front of the parliament building in Ukraine, do you think that happening the same day that Russian fighter jets are invading Syria is a coincidence? No, it is an absolute part of the plan. Putin plans on create some rioting, create turmoil within the capital city of Kiev, and then use his muscle along the borders of Ukraine to help the East Ukrainian people to go ahead and vote to be annexed by Russia and rejoin the Soviet Union, which they were already part of a long time ago. And that's all part of the Magog reestablishment. While Putin is doing that, simultaneously, he is sending in MiG fighter jets into Syria to take control of that nation, along with his alliance with Iran. And Assad can be the straw boss that they will use. But it's the Iranians, it's the Persians, and the Russians that will set up camp in Syria, just over the border of the Golan Heights from Israel. This is a prophecy moment. When I heard this last night, I was actually reading material about it last night, and I said to myself, are you serious? Oh, and by the way, it's not a coincidence that there's a skirmish going on with Israel and the Palestinians also over by Gaza. And already rockets are flying out of Gaza again toward Israel. That's to keep Israel preoccupied. While Israel's preoccupied with dealing with Hamas in Gaza, Russia is setting up camp in Syria right on their border. And while Russia is setting up camp in Syria right on the Israeli border, Russia is going to take eastern Ukraine away from Ukraine. And Obama's probably golfing, okay? If you're wondering where Obama is and all this, he's at a mountaintop somewhere in Alaska, taking the name of William McKinley, the 25th president of the United States, who was assassinated. Obama uses, you talk about the most low-down, this is the most low-down thing I've ever heard of, to go and to remove a dead president's name off a mountain that it's been there for 100 years. And he's using this, well, he wants to help the Native Americans. You want to help the Native Americans? Renaming that mountain doesn't help them. Give them an economic plan to get out of the poverty that they're in. That would help the Native Americans. I mean, somebody should speak up. Is it me? Do I have to be the voice? Some little preacher out of the cornfields of Indiana? Do I have to bring up the most obvious things going on? But here's why I can. Here's why I can. Because I've read the Word of God and I understand biblical prophecy, that what is unfolding before our very eyes was prophesied to happen. So many of you are so blinded with your confusion, where you hate Obama so much that you are willing to embrace anybody, including Putin. And yet Putin is the one. Oh, forget Obama for a minute. We already know how many alliances he has with the Muslim Brotherhood. And we already know he has a Muslim in the, that runs the CIA. We already know how much alliances he has with everyone over there. But Putin has the alliances with the big boys, like Iran and China and others. Putin is the one who is strategically taking position. And Israel knows it. Now Israel's got to worry about Russia over the Golan Heights. They got to, right there in Syria, they got to worry about the Iranian nuke deal that included Russia and America and the British, French, the Germans, the Chinese. So Israel can see the handwriting on the wall. And so this world is in trouble. We're living in the last days. Biblical prophecy going on all around us. I'm going to be right back with more. We're just getting started. Now the game is on. Russian planes in Syria, the game is on. Preparation for ultimately, not right now, but ultimately, the alliances are being set ultimately for the great battle of Gog and Magog, which is coming upon the earth. Are you saved? Give your life to Jesus Christ. We're running out of time.